Good to see you.
Hello.
Hey, Ben.
Not too bad, thank you. I'll turn the volume up a bit or something. Sorry, I haven't been here in a long time. It just turns out that way. I don't know why it turns out that way. I haven't been
Strange.
ignoring you. I've just been doing stuff. I don't know.
I haven't felt ignored, so it's fine.
That's
Totally happy.
brilliant. I'm glad. Um, cool. I was a bit late. I was on a phone call and it kind of knocked me off balance a bit. I wasn't here on time. Anyway, um, can I ask you about something? It's probably something I asked you about before, but just because it was happening today and see if we can help a little. I don't know. I'm working on it anyway. So,
Sure.
um, but yeah, so I was just doing self-inquiry, kind of. No, well, yeah, I guess I'm trying to looking at thoughts. This idea of the next Angelo's, he's not his personal thing, I guess, but he often, what's the next thought? And I struggle with that. I so many flippant thoughts here, it seems to me. But yeah, so I was this morning for an hour. I was watching the next thought, and like huge number of them in all directions, I mean, random. I was watching. I was like, wow, at least I'm managing to stick with it for an hour. That was pretty huge achievement. Not achieving, not believing in them yet, but sort of, getting there a little bit. I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. I can do like an hour, like a year and a half later. I'm just getting to step one of watching the next thought. And I thought, wow, this is great. So I came back at lunchtime, and the same thing as usually happens, kind of happened, which was that it just feels like I'm confused, and there's just this, yeah, confusion and this blankness and this spinning feeling and this feeling of I'm doing this wrong, and that's so certainly true that I can't shake that, and I just feel like I'm not, and there's a belief that there's thoughts happening here. It feels like I'm believing thoughts and I can't see them, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I just feel lost in it, and various other thoughts come up. I know I asked you about this before, but this is my experience for so long. Various thoughts come up, but the ones in the center feel like, oh, what's happening here? I bet you I'm believing something. And I felt into it then. Instead of looking at thoughts, I felt it, and I found, like, this kind of core of my identity is the one who fails at doing things. I'm currently failing at doing self-inquiry. And that feeling was so strong. And I just, yeah. So I was working with that like as a part, as it were, and I'll get people to help me with that. And I've done that before. But just, I guess, yeah, just like I think I think that it should be easy to just go, here's a sensation in my head. I have labeled this failure or something. I am failing. I've labeled this. Can I just take the label off that and stop believing that it's me failing at self-inquiry? Can I just do that? It's not easy, but I can't. I feel like I'm failing at self-inquiry and I'm confused and I can't escape from that. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
I have a couple. I have a couple.
I also have a lot of things.
Okay.
The first thing I would like to point out is what is it you assume that inquiry is that you are not doing, that you're clearly failing on? Because it must be something else but what you're doing. Otherwise you can't be failing. If whatever you're doing is inquiry, it's just the done way of doing inquiry, then you're not failing. It's a thought that is telling you that you're doing something wrong. I'm curious about that. How do you know that what you're doing is wrong?
I don't think it's got any rhyme or reason to it. I think it's so used to telling me that it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's going to tell me that anyway. It's just
Yeah.
going to keep telling me and telling me. And I'm kind of half know that I kind of think it's just telling me because it's used to telling me that, and I'm still believing it.
Yeah.
And oh yeah.
So if we just assume that whatever thought you have is just a metaphor for something that needs to be experienced, which means that there's a metaphor right now a thought is reminding you that there's something that you have experienced in your life that is manifested into your body, that Don is doing things wrong.
Hmm.
That is the feeling in your body that we need to look into. And that is what I would go with. So instead of fighting doing something wrong, do an inquiry into how does that actually feel in your body, and that is your territory. You're amazing at that.
Okay.
So go with that and see where it takes you. Be curious to what is it that actually needs to be felt. What is it that you right now are avoiding feeling by keep having a thought about feeling wrong and doing things wrong is wrong.
Okay. Cool.
So
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. Because I did start feeling it a bit, and I got a certain distance myself. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on. What do you feel?
Well, I felt, yeah, so I just felt the sensation of it, and I was doing a focusing thing. I was said hello to it, and I didn't even expect it to start telling me very much. I just said hello. And then it suddenly started to tell me about my whole secondary school since the age of 12, that everyone told me I was wrong for about 10 or 12 years straight. And I
Yeah.
was just bombarded with people saying, I'm lazy, I'm good for nothing, I'm not studying hard enough, I'm wrong. And I was listening to this for 10 or 12 years going, oh no. And this
Yeah.
part has just got so confused by being told he's wrong
Yeah.
for the whole of for a decade. And that's
And
as far as I got with it so far. Mm,
that might actually be what you need to feel into.
Yeah.
mm,
To that contraction that happened in your body for 10 years straight. That
mm,
contraction is still there.
Mhm.
mm.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do next though.
I
But
was just gonna ask, how does it feel exactly? That there's a feeling in the body that's associated with all of those times that you were told this about, who you thought you were. And then that was actually the first one of the questions I was going to ask was, um, we have an idea that when you have a thought about I'm doing this wrong, I'm not doing this well enough, if just those words were there, it wouldn't really have any hooks to it. It wouldn't mean anything. It's because there's an associated feeling. There's something in the body that arises with those words that makes it feel substantial and true.
Mhm.
So the question is, what does it feel like to be doing something wrong, as you were asking? And is that the same sort of feeling as what you're talking about now? That contraction of the childhood memory feeling.
I don't, what does it feel like to do something wrong? Or how does it feel like?
Yeah,
Something
well,
is happening here. You're putting your hand
I do
when
that a lot more. I do that a lot recently. I don't know why. The last few weeks I've
yeah,
been doing it a
yeah.
lot.
So
Yeah.
what is happening here in your chest right now?
Um, Best I could say as I'm being with myself, or I'm trying to comfort myself, or something. Something like that.
what are the sensations though in there? Do you
Oh yeah,
feel
okay.
the sensations that are in here?
In here, not, funny enough, not a huge amount right here. That's what I find it from my head, my face, all the way down to my, torso and my stomach. There's a whole piece of this whole being wrong thing. And it feels like confusion in my head, and feels like embarrassment in my face, and sadness, and then some kind of contraction in my torso, and down into anxiety and a bit of my stomach, sort of. But they're
Yeah.
not named as sensations, but still, anyway.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, if you can, it's good to have the awareness that this kind of feels like embarrassment, this kind of feels like anxiety, this kind of feels like sadness. But if you can take the labels, set them aside, and just be pure expression and the sensations exactly as they're showing up, and it's not just looking at the sensations from a distance. For a moment, when you feel it, see if you can so fully become one with those sensations, like that becomes all that there is while they're there.
Mhm.
You might find that they don't persist that long if you do them that way, but it's just being in absolute communion with those sensations without any of the ideas that this is sadness, this is embarrassment, this is anxiety.
Um,
Yeah.
Pure experience of sensation.
Okay, sensations. I'm not sure if I'm doing. It's almost like what I was trying to do. I follow. I'm not trying to go off on a tangent or anything, but sort of probably. But what I was kind of doing this morning, I almost had to separate myself from it, because I'd felt like me. I
Yeah.
am failing. It didn't feel like a part of me I had to negotiate or just talk to. I felt like 100% I am failing at this all the way through. So
Yeah.
to become more one with that while I already feel I'm that, I don't know how to even do that.
The physicality of the sensation, because right now, if you have the idea that I am failing at this, there are so many thoughts happening. There's
Mm.
a failure thought, and then there's probably some other subsequent thoughts about why you're not doing it correctly, why you're not as good as other people who can do it correctly, how this is just one more in the long line of history of all the times. All of those things are probably there, and it's not the actual raw sensation. It's like if you had a pain in your leg, that pain doesn't mean anything. It's just raw sensation that you could, if you wanted to, get so close to that there's effectively no division between a viewer or an experiencer of those sensations and the sensations themselves. And we can do the exact same thing with the sensations that we call sadness, embarrassment, anxiety, failure, all of that stuff. We're really talking about just the physical sensations. Like, what does embarrassment feel like for you? Is it warmth in the face? So just feel the warmth, that feeling of warmth. If anxiety feels like a churning, bubbling in the stomach, just feel the churning, bubbling. If there's tension and contraction, you just feel the buzzing, tensing sensation. And it's just as raw as you can possibly get with physical sensation. And it's becoming absolutely synonymous with that.
And just stay with it as because I'm trying to do it as you're talking about. I'm getting a bit blanked by some
But
parts.
sometimes it also helps going the other way. So you start in the butt, because for those 10 years where you were told that there's something wrong with you, every time somebody told you or gave you an indication or like something like that, something happened physically in your body. Just like when we're used to being hit as children, we flinch. We have certain muscles that are flinching. Those muscles give us tension in the neck, and throughout the next decades, we go around acting as if we're flinching. So when you were told over and over and over and over that you're wrong and you're not doing it good enough and you're doing everything wrong and you will never become anything good, you started to get a certain physical demeanor that made you be in a certain way. So if you sit upright right now, if you pull your seat back, your bum back in the seat, and you're sitting upright, everybody can do this, and you sit upright, and then you take your shoulders forward and up and roll them back and relax in your shoulders. And then you imagine that there's a helium balloon here pulling you up.
Okay.
And then you start to inhale on a smile. And exhale. And inhale. And exhale. The demeanor that you have physically now is not the same as if you are flinching or if you're being told that you're doing something wrong. So sometimes it comes from the way of the thought into the body. Other times it comes from the body into the thought. And that was what Todd was pointing at, that sometimes those are so connected that when we have that, that demeanor about doing something wrong and we, contract ourselves like that, the body is giving us the signal that I'm doing things wrong. It's not the mind that is doing it. It's coming from the other way around. And that's why sometimes it helps, to shake it up and change the demeanor, inhale on a smile. So you sit here and go like, okay, what exactly am I doing wrong? And you can't find anything because it's not in the body anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see how that goes. Yeah. Yeah. I can't feel it as strongly now because I'm talking to you, I guess, but I can continue looking at it as I yeah. Thank you. It's funny when I sat up straight, you mentioned the helium balloon. As soon as I stood up straight, a bunch of anxiety came over me going, how dare you sit up straight and try to be confident? You're not allowed to do that.
There you go. There you go. And that thought might actually be more uncomfortable than the thought about you doing something wrong. So it's better to think that you're doing something wrong and that you're playing it small and you're at least not arrogant.
Yeah.
And believing that you're puffed up and you're arrogant, that's much, much worse. And that's why you're not going in that room.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So I would recommend you to work with both because they're probably connected.
Probably are connected. So just the feeling, can I just continue for a second? So if I can get to the feeling of the sensations piece and I feel sensations, then I'm just, what do I do? What do I do then? Just continue to feel them as closely as I can and just not try and change anything, or I don't know. Yeah.
Effectively, yes. The sensations, like what I was pointing with, is if you can really be with those raw sensations just as they are, without adding more fuel to the fire with more thought about what you think they are, they will change, as Pernilla always says, within seconds. And what you might find is that actually they change from something that feels anxious or sad or whatever into something like contentment or happiness, or the actual experience of them can change when you don't have the label on them. It's like if there's a this is not a great example. I was gonna say, if there's say like a song that you for some reason feel like you've always hated, and it's like you don't really like the song, but if you put it on and completely hear it, like, you know what, this time I'm going to listen to it completely fresh. I'm bringing as little, gonna really try to
History
have
into
no
it,
history, no thought about it, and just hear the exact sound, like the real sounds of every instrument, the real sound of the voice, without putting any of your own stuff on it. You might find that actually it's either neutral or, okay, I guess I kind of like this, like you might have a very different experience of it if you don't bring the preconceived notions to it. And we're doing exactly the same thing with the sensations. And it sounds really simple, because it feels like we need to do something, but in some cases the only doing that we need to do is just to get out of the way and just allow the sensations that are there to be experienced exactly as they are, and it's completely taken care of on its own.
Seventh feather, something out of nothing.
Yeah.
That sounds easy. I'll quickly, see, that's why I say I'll quickly say something, because I'm afraid to take up too much time. But
Don't worry about it. Something good
but,
to look at, that concern about taking up too much time. That's also something really good to investigate. Why
I want to be small, remember?
Exactly.
But yeah, because I'm wrong. But
Take
yeah,
up physical space, take up time.
yeah. Yeah, thanks. No, I was, even while you were describing a minute or two ago, and because I had heard you, Pernilla, saying something about either a feeling or a sensation or whatever feeling can only last for 7 to 11 seconds. And I'm going, gosh, mine lasts way longer. I'm clearly thinking about them as I go along. And even now, while we were doing this exercise, I was doing everything you told me as best I could, and telling myself I was doing it wrong while I was doing it. And I'm just going, how do I
multitasking?
Oh yeah, I normally can't do multitasking, except when it comes to meditation. I can be distracted and watch my breath at the same time. Yeah.
Great.
So I don't know how to stop, they say, oh, you can't stop your thoughts because you're not creating your thoughts, but I don't know, but so that was happening now while I was watching that sensation, and I'm telling myself I'm doing it wrong, and
but you can't stop your thoughts because you're not in control of your thoughts. You cannot stop smelling or tasting or seeing. You cannot stop any of it because it's not within your wheelhouse. It's not under your control in any way. You do not have to believe in it, though. Believing in it is a completely different ballgame. It's like, a cloud is coming and you start a little argument about a cloud is coming. It makes no sense. That is what we're doing. So you having the thought about you taking up space and you being arrogant and you are always wrong and all of that, that can happen without it meaning anything. It's just a thought.
It can, it's just, I guess, what we were talking about is like when the thing feels like it's true, it's hard for me not to believe it. And that's, here we are with the feeling of being wrong, and I'm having the thought I'm wrong, and it feels true because that's what I feel, and I'm like, oh, I can't stop believing it, and because it feels true, and that's what I've been trying to do. That's what we started talking about, I guess. But I keep
exactly, because that is exactly what Todd is pointing at so often, that just because we have a sensory experience that is correlated with the thought, then it must be true. But it's not, though. The sensation in the body is not you being wrong. It's just a sensation in the body. That sensation in the body can only get a certain direction if you give it a direction. Contraction in the chest is just contraction in the chest. But You say this particular contraction in the chest is because I am wrong.
Mm.
It is the thought that is adding to it. You're giving a value to a contraction that is not there. And
Yeah.
that is the thought that is added. That is the something out of nothing. It's just a contraction in the chest. There's nothing more.
Yeah. I know. So I know we went through it already. I'm just saying, I was repeating myself, but like, I feel like that's what I've been trying to do, but not doing it very well. So like, I have that theory in my head going, okay, here's the sensation. I have a label of I'm failing on this sensation. I'm trying to separate those, and I'm not achieving that. I still
But,
feels like, you know, blah, blah.
how do you know that you're not successful? I mean, you have done leaps and bounds since we started talking about this. It's
Yeah,
just that you're comparing with something else.
maybe.
Yeah, you think that what you're doing and the insights that you're having are not happening quick enough. It should be happening quicker. It should have been resorted by now. You know, I've been doing this for a while. It should be sorted. That is just another thought that you're adding to something that is not real in the first place.
Um, yeah, I don't know how fast it's supposed to be. It just feels pretty damn slow to me, you know,
Yeah.
confusing and
But
upsetting.
it can only feel slow if you're comparing to something that is quicker.
Well, that's true. I don't
If,
know how to compare it to. That's true.
if you're comparing to something that's slower, like never ever going to change, then you are sprinting.
Yeah, I know. It's well, on one hand, yeah, exactly. The thought is just it doesn't have any interest in evidence. It's just keeping repeating the same thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
So
Okay.
how do you know? How do you know that you are not good at this, that you're not succeeding, that you're not? How do you know?
I guess the evidence I would say is that it seems that I continue to believe the same stuff for months and months and months. And I'm like, what have I this is the same old stupid thing I've been looking at, you know, and I'm still looking at it going, I know this doesn't mean X, but it still feels like X. What the hell am I going to do now? Yeah.
So instead of fighting it, can you allowing it to be there without believing in it? Can that contraction that is happening in your body be allowed to be there? Can you be in a body where that contraction is happening and you do not create more out of it, but just allowing it to be there? If this is done 10 years old, that needs to feel how this body feels with that contraction not being good enough. Can you be the adult in the room and just allow that to happen? Going like, it's fine. I'm right here. It's fine.
Yeah, in theory. In practice, not really. But I'll try to do it again after talking to you now. But in practice, no. I mean, I'd say in practice, up to this point, no is the answer. I can't do it without believing it because I've tried for ages, and it
Yeah.
just keeps being believed. But I'll keep trying. You know, yeah.
How does the
You go.
how does the belief manifest though? So you have sensation and you have a thought, but when a thought is there, when you say that every time you experience it, it's believed. What's the difference between the experiencing of a thought and the believing of the thought?
I mean, it seems so circular. It's like a thought seems to trigger a feeling, and then the feeling says it's true, and then that means I believe it. I'm like, that's really simple. I mean, it's stupid. I should just go, I can see through that immediately, and yet it still feels true.
Well, okay. So the first of all, I would like to say though, I mean, you are on a really good trajectory with even recognizing, first of all, like in the past, there was no space between the idea of I am a failure at this. Well, no, well, yes, but back in the idea back in the day, you just took it at face value that there really was something wrong with you, that you really were just not good at doing things. Now you're putting some space in between there and you're recognizing that, okay, these are thoughts. They're not actually true, but they feel true. But that already is such a step from where you used to be. So now you're recognizing it. Now it's a step of wondering or finding out what is the difference between experiencing a thought and believing that thought. And so, like you just said, you have a thought and then you feel it. So there's an assumption that feeling something in the body means that you believe the thought. But does it?
I don't know. I mean, rationally, I would say no, of course not, sort of thing. And yet, the experience of it is like I'm believing it, and I'm going, what is this believing in it feeling thing that I'm experiencing? Why is it? Yeah, I do keep asking myself, like, why do I feel like I'm believing this? What is in this that makes it seem like believing? It's just a sensation and a label. What am I doing? Why does it feel like I'm convinced that I believe this and I can't unconvince myself? It's weird.
Is it because it sparks a sort of emotional tone that feels familiar?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say, and it's very, as I said before, it's very central to my identity as the failure since school. I mean, it's so, yeah.
So can you feel
Looking at that.
the emotional tone that it brings up? That thing that kind of feels like the sad or, you know, sort of hangdog feeling of what you associate with the feeling of dawn. That it's that feeling that's there, and then really get into, is that itself the thing that you think it is? Like, is that a a whole unquestionable indivisible kind of an emotional tone, or can you feel, okay, even in that feeling of being this sort of ambiguous sense of that, where is that felt in your experience? Is there something in the neck, the head, the chest? Like, even that, break it down to what it feels like to have that emotional tone present, because it's
Okay.
still all identifiable. And you can still take the label, even if you're not giving it a label consciously all the time. For a moment, think of it as, oh, right, I recognize that. That's the sad dawn feeling, or that's the whatever. And then just do what we've been doing and come to the breaking it apart into all the components of that experience, all of the felt sense experiences that are the components of what it feels like to have that more vague emotional tone, and just be with those as is, without saying that that means anything more than just a pain in a leg.
Okay. That's really cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep trying to like watch this back to remind myself what you said.
Yeah.
But I remember asking you, I think, did I ask you this something like this back in December or January, and I forgot most of what you said immediately. So I had to watch it back several times. But yeah.
It's why we have meetings once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I also I had just a practice question, because I just want to clarify that, ironically, that you are doing everything correctly when you're doing that. When you mentioned the practice of, what is the next thought, what is the actual like practice that you're doing when you do that waiting for the next thought practice?
I don't know. Is there more to be said about it than just what you described? What do I maybe I misunderstand, but I'm waiting for, I don't know. I'm waiting for the next thought. What am I don't know. What I don't know.
Are you anticipating a thought? Are you be,
I'm trying to see if I can see the next thought. Okay, well, I'm trying to see if I can see the next thought, because my normal experience has been the one I describe of confusion, whereas sometimes, well, not very often, sometimes this morning I was going, oh, hold on, I can see a thought, and then I can see the next one, the next one. That's just the heavy duty confusion wasn't here for a little while. And I'm just waiting. And then there's seems like gaps, and I'm going, hold on, I bet you I'm thinking. How about a sec? Let's see what's happening here. And then I gonna look and I go, I'm thinking, I can't see what I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm confused. Oh, I better watch those ones now as well. And I'm trying to see all the layers of, I'm doing this wrong. I don't know what's happening here. I'm doing this, I'm confused. I'm trying to see all as many of those as I can to go, is there really no thinking when it seems silent? I bet you there's thoughts in there. Let's see, let's look even further and see what's, I don't know.
okay, it does sound like maybe you are adding more layers of thought to
The
the
exercise,
pie of, the thought pie. It's a layer cake of thought, really. So the magic to that inquiry, the magic to the, do you know what your next thought is going to be kind of inquiry, is to recognize that, as invested and identified as we seem to be with our thoughts, that we have absolutely no idea what our next thought is ever going to be. And it's not about recognizing if there is going to be a next thought, because of course there is. And it's not about, am I thinking when I'm not thinking that I'm thinking, even though that's also kind of interesting to note. It's some magic opening happens when you are looking, what is my next thought going to be? And there's a brief moment of silence where you don't know what the hell that next thought is going to be. And there's a realization that can come with that, oh, it's not under my control. There is nothing there that has to do with me thinking a thought, creating thoughts, or anything else. There's just that moment of pause, that moment of silence where there's a recognition that there is just this stopping with no idea when that stopping is going to end or how it's going to end, what it's going to be replaced with. And it's, instead of making anything out of what comes next, what thoughts do show up, that's completely irrelevant to that particular exercise. It's just noticing those brief moments of silence and the fact that there is no idea how that or if that is ever going to end. Mm-hmm. And just doing that over and over again as needed to feel that sort of realization dawn, that experience of really not being in any sort of control of whatever is spinning in the mind.
At the risk of taking up even more space, I can't see how many hands are up now because I'm not that's just, yeah, I don't know. That's exactly the point to me in some sense. I hear why I'm failing. I hear people describing this, and first of all, I hear people saying, implying or saying that there's a space between thoughts, and I'm like, nope, no, there isn't. Continuing confusion. So I've had this. So I have the space between the explicit thoughts, as I said before, and then this feeling or sensation of some kind of confusion or identification humming along continuously, and I'm going, oh, is there really a space between these thoughts, or is there thinking happening continuously? It feels like continuous thinking. It feels like identification. I need to look further and further. And then there's a thought saying there's some unconscious thinking or something, identification happening. You need to look into this. Oh, is that a thought? Oh, I don't know. And the whole bloody thing is confusion. And I never get that gap. And I kind of know what it's supposed to be about. But that's why yeah. And like I suppose I came across Angelo in December 2022. I've been doing this for that length of time. And that was my very first experience of this. And it's always been my experience of it. Never finding a gap, always finding confusion, and the belief that I'm identified with this confusion. And
I still agree with Todd that you're doing everything right. I still agree with that. Because when you have what you're noticing is that what you're noticing is actually something that most people never notice. And that is that every single sensory experience we have a thought attached to it. Mm-hmm. Most people don't notice that. Most people, they experience what you say, that now I'm thinking, that was quiet, now I'm thinking again. So most people notice that gap between the thoughts. But in reality, there's never ever quiet. Never ever quiet, because your sensory experiences are experiencing all the time. And there's a little thought attached to every single thing, because that is the only thing that is ensuring our survival. Mm. That you can smell that there's no smoke. You can hear that there's not a saber-toothed tiger in the kitchen. You can, notice all that. And every single sensory experience we have a little appendix of identification full of thought attached to it. So what we're doing is actually, how can we say, next level, where it's noticing all the thoughts that are attached to every single sensory experience. And when we start to practice noticing the sensory experiences, it is noticing what is a sensory experience and what is a thought about a sensory experience. What you're experiencing right now is everything at the same time.
That's the thank you. Yeah, you're very kind. I mean, I don't notice the thought specific, but while I'm here, I'm waiting for the next thought. And then this feeling of, I feel like I'm identified with every sound outside the window and everything. It's all about me. Everything that's happening is about me. And it makes me feel, ugh. And I'm waiting for the next thought going, there's 100 thoughts happening now. Where's the next thought? I can't see most of them. So, yeah.
And notice too, though, like I know you said that they're all self-referential, but notice, if you hear a bird outside the window, are you seeing a quick image in your mind of a bird? Is it things where our internal world is constantly being created by, as Pernilla just said, these images and stories and memories and all of these flashes that are popping up in response to everything constantly. Ding, 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 ding. And so even when we think we're having a raw experience of like sensation, you can notice, am I having visual images that seem to be correlating to that sensation? Is it images of the sensation that I'm feeling?
It goes so quick.
Yeah.
For example, I heard a bird, and before I even noticed that I heard a bird, my mind created a picture of a cardinal. And then it was a picture of us in the hammock yesterday looking at the cardinal. So it goes out like that, so quick. So you're actually a step ahead of what we would like for you to notice. You're doing better than you thought.
There you go.
That's so terrible. I was determined to believe I'm a failure for way longer than this.
Yeah. We're sorry to burst that bubble.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks
Dang
for
it.
all your time. I appreciate it. I'll keep working on it.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
You got a long arm.
I do have. Oh no.
Up in the corner.
It's a
No,
Mac.
up in the corner.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
Oh no, it's a man.